Was the discussion helpful to you in seeing what needs to be purified? Good. Yeah. Yeah. I think that purification is a very psychologically helpful. Not only spiritually helpful, but psychologically helpful, because when we do purification, we're able to also forgive ourselves for what we've done. And sometimes that's the hardest thing, and but it needs to be done, to forgive ourselves. One thing that's especially helpful when there's things that we've done that we just feel really bad about, and we're really mad at ourselves for acting in that way, or we feel really, guilty about, even though guilt is a useless endeavor. What is very helpful is to realize that we are not the same person who did that negative action. Yeah, we are in the same continuum as that person, so we will experience the karmic result of what they did unless we purify it. But we are not that same person, in the sense that, most of us, I think, when we were, teenage, early 20s, we may have done really stupid things, really painful things. And then to realize later, like, oh, I understand that person I was, but that did that. But I'm not that person now. Yeah. And in that way you can see how you've grown and changed over time. So the person who you were that did that, you've learned now, and you probably won't do it again, but you can understand why that person did it, why the person who you used to be acted in that way. And what we usually find out is we were confused, we were trying to be happy, and we did things that were harmful in a mistaken effort to be happy. We didn't have the right, we didn't understand what causes happiness and what doesn't. So sometimes we take revenge on people, we retaliate, we hold grudges, thinking that that's making the other person suffer, and since we want revenge, then we feel glad. And then as you get older, you realize, ugh, what a horrible attitude I had, But I can forgive myself because I understand at that time how confused I was, and I was trying to be happy and did something that just caused more pain. So I regret it, I purify it, but I don't sit there and get really down on myself and hard on myself. Okay, it's kind of like, and this attitude, of seeing that people, when they're unhappy, they do really harmful things. It's a very good way to calm our anger as well against other people, because why do people do things that are harmful, that maybe we're the victim of their harm? It's again, they're trying to be happy. They don't know the way to be happy. They don't know that virtue is the cause of happiness. So, they do all these other things. And to have some compassion for somebody who's so confused like that, instead of hating them. So it's the same way when we look back on things that we did. Yeah. So that's a very good way to see things, and it's also very helpful for cultivating patience and forgiveness and tolerance, for other people, instead of always having our judgmental mind operate. Yeah, because our judgmental mind, we were talking this morning about putting things in boxes and thinking that's what they are. That's what our judgmental mind does. Oh, this person did this and such to me. They're awful. I'm never going to speak to them as long as I live. May they get hit by a truck. Yeah, sometimes we dedicate our merit for good things, and then sometimes may somebody get hit by a truck. What? What kind of person does that make me when I wish that for someone else? But, again, if we can look and say, wow, somebody's suffering and that's why they did that, and have compassion. It doesn't mean what the person did was okay. Yeah, in the same way that we might look at things that we did years ago that were done because we were unhappy in an effort to be happy. It doesn't mean those things were good, but we understand the pain that we were experiencing then, and so in that way we can have compassion for our previous self, and when we do this with other people, we can have compassion for them. Okay. So, let's see. We could do the practice again, or I have another idea. When I was teaching at ABC earlier this week about compassion, I didn't finish the verses by Chandrakirti, and so I could finish it now, talking about compassion. Shall I do that? Okay. Yeah, some of you said yes, and the rest of you went. Yeah. Okay, so now I just have to find it again. How do I get rid of this one? It's not, and I need my glasses.
Oh.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah, but it's. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, to find the other one. Sorry, people who wear glasses understand what it's like when you don't have your glasses. What is this? Ah, thank you. Oh. Oh, look, there's things on here. Let's see if I can find it now. Consecration. What's all this? Okay. Okay, it's not showing the folder I want. No. Okay, let's try. I'll get rid of it.
Do you want the volume 5?
No, just show me how to get rid of this.
I don't know what it does.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that either.
Oops. Okay.
Okay. So, what is this? No, we don't want. Oh, it just had it and then it disappeared. Okay, I know you're suffering and you just want to be happy. Yeah. I'm not going to throw you across the room, although it's tempting. No, it's not that one. No, it can't be there. It reappeared. How nice. Okay, so what I had been teaching at ABC was the homage to great compassion written in by Chandrakirti, who was a 7th century great Indian sage who wrote a lot of fantastic books. And he was writing a commentary or a supplement, we often call it, to Nagarjuna's treatise on the Middle Way, which is a commentary on the Prajnaparamita Sutras. Okay, so you always have commentaries on commentaries on commentaries, yeah. So he was paying, at the beginning of his treatise, he was paying homage to great compassion. Usually the sages pay homage to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, to Manjushri, to the omniscient Buddha, yeah. But in this one, he's paying homage to great compassion. So the verse that I didn't get to teach, yeah, actually it's 2 verses. I'll read it to you. It's that one. Okay. Like a bucket in a well, migrators have no autonomy. First, with the thought I, they cling to a self. Then, with the thought mine, they become attached to things. I bow to this compassion that cares for migrators. And then it follows up. Homage to that compassion for migrators, seen as evanescent and empty of inherent existence, like a moon in rippling water. Okay? So here, he's talking about sentient beings in samsara and comparing them to a bucket in a well. Sometimes some translators translate it as a bucket in a water wheel. Yeah, but even if that is more literal, which I don't know if it is, it doesn't explain what Chenrezig means. It doesn't give you insight into compassion the same way as thinking of a bucket in a well. Okay? How many of you have ever pulled a bucket up in a well? Not very many. We're used to turning on taps, huh? Yeah. I once did retreat in Italy at a house that didn't have running water, and we got our water in a well and pulled the bucket up. Okay, so what this means, okay, so here are sentient beings whose minds are overwhelmed by ignorance and all the other afflictions, and through that they create karma, they do actions of body, speech, and mind, and those actions leave seeds, so to speak, on their mental continuum that will ripen into what they experience in later times, usually in a future life, but sometimes in this life as well. And once we create the cause, of negative karma, once we create the cause, unless we purify it, when the appropriate conditions come together, it's going to bring its result, whether we like it or not. Okay? So most people don't really know about purification, do they? Yeah, did you learn about purification when you went to school? I didn't. Yeah. And how to, do something after we have harmed somebody, either by our thoughts, by our speech, or physically. And like I said, so often we judge people who do harmful actions and think that they're bad, whereas actually if we look at them with compassion, then, we can hold them accountable for what they do, but we don't hate them, and we're willing to give them a second chance if it seems like they've changed enough. Yeah? Okay. So there's 6 ways in which migrators, and they're called migrators because we are migrators. Yeah, I know that Donald Trump doesn't want migrators in America, but we're talking about a different kind of migrator. And anyway, I don't listen to him. Yeah, we're called migrators because we're born in one realm, we die from that realm, we're born somewhere else, we die there, we're born in another realm, die there. We've been going round and around in samsara, migrating from one realm to the next, one birth to the next, one family to the next. And it's all pushed by the force of our afflictions. So you can see in this verse when he says, migrators have no autonomy. We feel like we have autonomy, and we do have choice. But so often in our life, we just run on automatic. Some idea pops into our mind, and we act it out without stopping to evaluate, does this idea make sense? Is this action that I'm about to do really going to achieve the purposes that I want, or am I deluding myself? Yeah, we often don't check that. Okay, so first he says, with the thought I, that's the primary self-grasping. There is a real me here. So with the thought I, they cling to a self. There's a real me here, and it is the most important thing in the world. My happiness is more important than anybody else's. Why? Because I am me. Yeah. Is that a good reason? No, but we think it is. Yeah. When you think about it, why should I be the most important one in the world just because I'm me? Everybody else thinks like that. Everybody else thinks I'm the most important one. Why? Because I'm me. So why is my thinking that way more, make more sense than anybody else's? Yeah, it's not a very good argument. Yeah. So, but we have the thought I, we cling to the self. Then with the thought mine, yeah, they become attached to things. My thermos. Isn't this a beautiful thermos? So-and-so gave it to me. Actually, they don't know they gave it to me. I'm really claiming it as my own. But anyway, now that I call it mine, it's very important. Before, when it belonged to somebody else, if it got damaged, I didn't care much. But when it's mine, I care a lot. Okay? Those of you who are parents know that. Yeah? When your child doesn't do well in school, it is a national catastrophe. Yeah, the worst thing that could happen in primary 1. Yeah, when they think 1 plus 2 equals 12. Because you put the 1 and the 2 next to each other. Yeah? And they're in primary 1. They think 1 plus 2 equals 12. They're never going to get into a good school. Yeah. Yeah, they're supposed to go to Harvard. Yeah, they're what, 6 years old? How old are you in primary 1? 6? Yeah? So my kid's supposed to go to Harvard. Why? Because they're my kid. Yeah. And my kids have to get the best education, have to be the best. But, so everything that happens to your kid is like so important. Your neighbor's kid thinks 1 plus 2 equals 12, and you think that's really cute and funny. It doesn't bother you at all, because you know that child, eventually somebody will explain to them that 1 plus 2 actually equals 4. And, and then they can apply for Harvard after that. So just seeing how much of our suffering comes because of grasping at a very solid, independently existing I, and everything that is mine has to be as perfect as I am. Yeah, it is as perfect as I am. Look at this thermos, isn't it? Are you jealous? Yeah, I have such a nice thermos. Yeah, the people at Pure Land don't know. Okay, so with the thought mind, they become attached to things. When we get attached to things, what happens? We will do anything to get what we want. If I have to lie, it's okay. If I have to cheat somebody, it's okay. If I have to take something that isn't mine, it's not really stealing, but it's okay. Yeah. I mean, why do you take things from your office? Well, because they should pay me more. And they're underpaying me. So if I take some office equipment or something from the office and I claim it as my own, it's only them starting to pay me my fair salary. Yeah. Did you ask your boss about that? No. Okay. So do you see what this kind of attachment does? We justify all sorts of, not very nice behavior. So with the thought mind, they become attached to things. And then you see the suffering that comes from that. Okay. What's one of the biggest reasons that marriages break up? I think you know. Yeah. Usually it's one of the partners going off and having an affair. Isn't it? Yeah. And then, it's pleasurable, so there's attachment, there's pleasurable, you want to do it again, you start, lying to cover up what you're doing, you start taking money that belongs to the family to use for, whoever you're having the affair with. And then you justify it with, well, our marriage isn't so exciting and this makes me feel good. And what's wrong with a little bit of happiness? Yeah, my spouse won't find out. My kids won't find out. Oh, yeah? Really? You guys have heard of Bill Clinton, right? Former president of the U.S. Do you know what his scandal was about? Yeah. How about Donnie? Yeah. How many women has he gone off with? There was in this year, there was a court case, and he has to pay millions of dollars for, he spoke very bad about one woman who accused him of raping her. And he said, I didn't do it. Anyway, he did it. Yeah, and the judge gave him a really hefty thing. It was a civil case, not a criminal case. And he, goes off and does this kind of thing. One of them, he did it many times. One of them, his wife was pregnant at the time, and he was going off with a porn star. So, this doesn't breed harmony in the family, does it? Yeah. And you think, oh, my kids won't find out. Well, I can't tell you how many kids, adult kids, come and say, when I was little, Dad, it was usually Dad, sometimes Mom, was going off with somebody else and having an affair. And they didn't think that we kids knew, but we kids knew. And then your kids lose respect for you. Okay? So we do these kinds of things in an attempt to be happy, but they only create more suffering now and plant the seeds in our mind for suffering in future lives. Okay? And so in seeing this, Chandrakirti's conclusion was, I bow to the compassion that cares for migrators. In other words, he's honoring the kind of compassion that can hold somebody who acts in this way with kindness, seeing that they were overpowered by their mental affliction, specifically their desire and attachment at that time. Okay? But this kind of thing, is what makes samsara continue again and again. And here's where the analogy of a bucket in a well comes in. Okay? So there's 6 ways that he explains why the bucket and the well going up and down is like sentient beings migrating in samsara. When the bucket goes up, that's like being born in a fortunate life. The bucket goes down, it's born in the lower realms. And so throughout our beginningless history in samsara, we go up and down like a bucket in a well. Yeah. So here's how he's talking about the analogy. Just as a bucket in a well is tied by a strong rope, sentient beings are tightly bound to cyclic existence by afflictions and karma. Mm-hmm. While they seek happiness, we are unable to move freely and lack the autonomy to choose what we encounter in life, because it's a result of previous actions. Although we wish for happiness and freedom from suffering, afflictions such as greed, anger, and confusion overwhelm our minds, and we act contrary to our own best interests. We want to be happy. What do? Actions that bring about our suffering. We act contrary to our own best interest. In addition, governed by our previously created actions, we find ourselves facing many problems and difficulties, personal, social, political, economic, and so forth. Okay? So the bucket in the well has a strong pulley. Yeah, the afflictions, the karma, it's pulling. Yeah, the rope. It has a strong rope and it's pulling the bucket up, pulling the bucket down. Okay, so in that way we are pulled by our afflictions and karma. Second way, just as the operator of a pulley moves the bucket in the well, the afflictive mind propels sentient beings into various rebirths, where again and again we find ourselves in situations of conflict and pain. Okay, although we see ourselves and others as independent beings who are in control of our lives, in fact, afflictions and karma are our overlords and determine our experiences. Okay, so the bucket in the well, is governed by the rope, and the rope has a pulley operator. Yeah. Okay, so the rope is probably more akin to karma, which causes us to be reborn either in a good realm or a bad realm. And the operator of the pulley is more like afflictions, our own actions, our own thoughts that make the rope move. Okay, the third way, so you see, we and all other migrating beings are not really free. We think we're free, but we're actually so affected by our previous actions. Okay, then the third, just as the bucket continuously goes up and down in the deep well, sentient beings wander without end in cyclic existence, from the highest form realm to the lowest hell realm. Okay, reborn as everything in between, governed by the rope and the pulley. Okay, so this is what life in samsara is. We go up, some good karma ripens. Okay, I'm born in Singapore, I have a great life, compared to other people. But of course, even though we have a great life compared to people in Somalia, we still find tons of things to complain about. That our life should be better, but it isn't. It's true, isn't it? We always find something to complain about. So, the bucket goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And so we go up and down in samsara. Good rebirth, bad rebirth. Good rebirth, bad rebirth. Some people are concerned, like at the time of the Buddha, there was one couple, and they asked the Buddha, how can we be reborn as in the same place and be a couple in the future life? It's actually quite difficult, because we have so many karmic seeds, so many different things going on in our mind. So we go up, then, the person we want to be with has a bad rebirth. They're born on Mars, we're born on the moon, they're born in the hungry ghost realm, we're born in the God realm. Up and down, up and down. And the thing is, you may be very close to someone in this life, but in the next life, we don't even recognize them. Because if you think of it, all of us have been mothers or parents and children to each other sometime in beginningless time. But I don't look at you and say, "Hi, Mom." You know, I don't remember what rebirth you were my mother in, and you don't look, some of you don't look very much like a mother right now. Yeah? And yet, they say that, you know, everybody has been our mother at one time or another and been kind to us. But we're, you know, we're born all over the place, up and down, yeah. Okay, then the fourth way the bucket is like migrators. Okay, the bucket descends easily, but great exertion is needed to pull it up again. So in the same way, living beings easily get born in the lower unfortunate realms because it's so easy to create negative karma. Yeah? We have so many afflictions, and we just act them out and think it's normal. Yeah? And society even justifies some of our afflictions and tells us that it's good. Even if society approves, that doesn't mean that we're immune from the law of karma. We still have to experience the results of our own actions. Okay? So the bucket can go down easily, difficult to get it up. Yeah? If you ever are at a well with a wooden bucket, yeah? A wooden bucket full of water, when it's really, the well is deep and it's way down and you have to pull it up, it's tough to pull it up, yeah, because it's so deep, the wood and the water is heavy. See my muscles? Yeah, I can get it up a few inches. Yeah. No, maybe a few feet. But it's hard to get up. Get the bucket up because it's heavy. So in the same way, when sentient beings fall to the lower realms, it's difficult for them to have a good rebirth later, because when you're in the lower realms, it's difficult to create virtue, and virtue is the cause of a good rebirth. Okay, case in point. Yeah, we have 4 cats at the Abbey. Now, I know Singaporeans don't like cats. You think that they're dirty. Actually, cats are cleaner than dogs, but we're not going to have a fight about that. Okay, so we have 4 adorable cats, yeah, that we pamper and we love, yeah? And our cats, you know, we usually try and keep them indoors, because if they go outdoors, they will chase the gophers and the mice and the moles and, you know, bite the bees and the butterflies, anything that moves. They think it's a toy and they want to play with, and they can actually wind up killing other little living beings. And they don't feel any regret, because for them it's just a toy. Yeah. So we tell them, you know, don't kill other living beings. Yeah? They want to live just as much as you want to live. So don't kill them. They're not toys. And we tell our cats that, and they just look at us. You know, lovingly saying, pet me, feed me, you know. We try and teach them something about good ethics, but in the animal realm, you can't learn, you can't understand that. So no matter how much we say that, they still chase the bugs and the mice and living beings. Okay? So you can see in that way how easy it is to create negative karma, you know. And especially if you're born in a lower realm, you're not going to hear the Dharma, or you can't understand it, or you're in too much pain to listen, or you're too busy running around chasing after all the things you want to pay any attention. And so it's difficult if you're born in a bad rebirth to come out of it. And even us, born here in a good rebirth, yeah, how many people could keep really good ethical conduct? What do you read about in the paper? Yeah, does the newspaper tell you about virtuous, kind actions that are done all day by other living beings? Yeah, the papers I read don't. You know, it's all about, wars, yeah, killing, stealing, all these kinds of things. So it's actually quite difficult, even for human beings who have a good life, to create virtue because the mind is so uncontrolled. Yeah? Can you think about what you see around you, how people act? Yeah. If you don't see enough crime here to get that, come to the US. Yeah? Yeah. You live in the US, you can own a gun. Yeah? And I mean, fortunately in Singapore, there's no school shootings. You people have very good gun laws. In the States, we don't. Well, my opinion is we don't. The Second Amendment says you can own a gun, and some people say, that's our God-given right to own a gun, Really? I need a gun. What do you need a gun for? Self-defense. How about talking to a person instead? No, because they break into my house. But then what you find and you read about is people, it happened just this year, one teenage boy was going to get his little brother who was staying at somebody's house, and he went to the wrong house. He knocked on the door. The man inside didn't know who he was and shot him because he thought he was breaking into the house. Yeah. He could have opened the door and said, hello, and the boy would have said, is this such and such address? And he would have said no. And then the teenage boy would have gone to the correct address. But no, the man just said, he's trying to break in the house. He killed him. And now the man, who was old, he was in his 80s, he now has a prison sentence. Okay. So, when you look, sentient beings so easily create the cause for their own suffering, And so once they go down in the lower realms, it's difficult for some positive karma to ripen. Yeah. And it's difficult for them to create positive karma. Okay, the fifth one. Just as the bucket goes round and round without a discernible beginning or end, sentient beings cycle through the different sets of links. How many of you have studied the 12 links of dependent arising? Yeah? Okay, so you know that these 12 links that the Buddha taught describe how we are reborn in samsara. Yeah, how we do this, and then that leads to that, and that leads to that, and so on. And it also describes how we can stop our samsara. If we stop ignorance, then we stop the karma, then we stop, the future ones, okay? But if you look at a bucket, yeah, it goes up and down, up and down. Can you really, see when does the going up stop and it goes down? does it go up and then stop for a while and then go down and stop for a while? Or it just keeps going round and around and around. And so this is the way we are in samsara, okay? We have a great rebirth, but, you know, we want more. We want more of something. So we lie, we get what we want, yeah, we feel good about it. It's a fully, complete, perfect, non-virtuous action. Yeah, we're quite good at perfection, except of the wrong thing. Yeah, and so we have that. It causes a bad rebirth. When we, you know, an unfortunate rebirth, then in that unfortunate rebirth, we create more negative karma. Okay. Then maybe at the end of that rebirth, somebody is saying mantra. You know, we're a cat, and somebody says mantra while we're dying, and that makes a virtuous karma in our mind ripen. That virtuous karma was created long time ago when we were a human being, you know, not in the cat life. But somebody said mantra, it made the virtuous karma ripen. We're born as a human being again. And then we create more negative karma and go down. You know? So we experience the result of our actions, and then while we're doing that, we're creating more karma. So it's like the bucket in the well going up and down repeatedly. Up and down, okay? And then the sixth way is the bucket is constantly battered as it forcefully knocks into the side of the well. It's dented, punctured, worn down, broken. Yeah, so you have your wooden bucket, you know, the pulley operator is pulling it up with the rope, and it's going up, and it clanks against this side, it clanks against the other side. You know, then when it gets to the top, they take the water out, then, you know, the bucket falls, just plunk, and it batters against the side of the well when it goes down. So in the same way, we, you know, sentient beings, as they go up and down in samsara, yeah, we experience misery in all of our different lives. Okay, so this life we have a very good circumstance. That's why they call it a precious human life, because we have the freedom to be able to, and we've met the Dharma, we have the mental capacity, we have our health, we have what we need, and we've met teachers, and we have the time to practice. So we have an incredibly fortunate life this time, yeah. But still, despite the fortune, yeah, is everything perfect in your life? No, we still don't get what we want. We get what we don't want. Yeah, we get COVID. Who wants COVID? Nobody wants COVID. Yeah, do we have a choice? Yeah, if we had a choice and voted, oh, COVID, you're kicked out of the country. Yeah, that doesn't matter. It spreads as it does. Yeah. And we're still subject to aging, sickness, and death. So even though we have a good rebirth, everything isn't wonderful. Yeah, this is not nirvana. Okay. I know samsara is the name of a perfume, and nirvana is the name of a band, but we're talking about a different samsara and nirvana. Okay. So, you know, wherever we're born, we have problems. Sometimes we look at certain people, we say, oh, if I was only like them, then I would be happy. Well, they say, be careful what you wish for because you may get it. Yeah. So I can just imagine, all sorts of teenage girls and teenage boys looking at Taylor Slow and her boyfriend, who's a big husky football player. And the girls say, oh, if I were only Taylor Slow, I would be happy. And the guys again, if I was only Travis Kelce, I would be happy. Do you think they're happy? Would you want your personal life put in newspapers on the stands of the supermarket and spread all over the web with everybody commenting on your life? Yeah. We think, oh, I want to be famous. Being famous means that you're good. Being famous means you have no privacy, no peace. Everybody wants to comment. Everybody gossips about you. And everybody has the right to comment about your life. Yeah. So did you know that Donnie's son, who is named after him, was engaged to, what was her name? What was her name? Yeah, say it again? Yeah, Kimberly Guilford. Yeah, who used to be the wife of Newsom, who is now the governor of California. He was a Democrat, but they broke up and now she's with a Republican. Yeah. And so, so they've been engaged for 4 years. Well, do you know that in the last few weeks, he's been seen with another woman, yeah, who was a socialite. Yeah, Kimberly was 9 years older than him. This other woman is 9 years younger. And you know what happened? They haven't announced, he and Kim, that they broke up, but everybody's talking about it. What do you think of that? Yeah. And then Donnie, because we're talking about Donnie's son who did this. Then Donnie selected Kimberly Guilford and made her the ambassador to Greece. So he's getting her out of the country so that his son can now run off with somebody else. And if they marry, it will be his third wife. So he's now catching up to his dad, who's been married 3 times. Yeah. So now you know the story about Donnie Jr. And what's your opinion? What do you think? Yeah, he's famous. Some people, when his dad in the first term was president, they were calling for him to be the next president. Yeah? Can I move to Singapore? Yeah. So everybody's talking, not everybody, many people are talking about this. And then Ivanka, is married to Jared Kushner. And if I told you what Jared's father did to his mother, oh my goodness, yeah. So Jared's father has a criminal indictment, and he was declared guilty. And then their youngest daughter, what's her name? Help me. Tiffany. Then Tiffany Trump, she married somebody, and his dad too has been a criminal and went to prison. And then Donnie appointed both both of his daughter's father-in-laws, both of whom have been served time in prison, to be ambassadors of the United States, or appointed them to some kind of official position. This. What? I'm sorry, I can't. Okay, yeah, so one's the ambassador to the UK, and the other is some other, official piece. Yeah. Can you imagine that? Oh, these people, I can't believe that. Yeah. So, this is what happens when you're famous. Yeah. Then everybody talks to you about you in a Dharma course in Singapore. Yeah. Yeah. They're tired of talking about the Buddha. It's so much juicier to talk about who's sleeping with who and who's criminal and blah, 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 because the conclusion is all these people create negative karma, which means I am very pure. Okay? So, that's why they say be careful of who you emulate and who you're jealous of, because you might become like them and you might get the kind of life they have. Yeah? If you're famous, I don't think it's so fun anymore, actually. Yeah? So be careful, because we're going up and down and in every life. Even you're famous, you're rich, you have a ton of problems. Okay, so the point of all of this is to see this is the situation of living beings in the 6 realms whose lives are propelled by ignorance, anger, and attachment, and who create some virtue in their lives, but also many of them more non-virtue. And then they get good results from their virtuous actions. They get suffering results from their non-virtuous actions. Okay? And to look at this situation and have compassion. Instead of I don't want to think about it, it's too scary, and sticking our head in the sand, No, this is the reality, and, what's the response when you see people in this kind of situation? Compassion. In the same way that the Buddhas look at us and how we want happiness and not suffering, but how we do also some questionable things. And the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have compassion for us. They don't sign off on us and say, oh, look at that person. They have a precious human life, and all they do is read sci-fi novels. I give them teachings, and they go home and read novels. I give them more teachings, and they watch television. I give them more teachings, they go to the casino. That's not why I teach them the Dharma. But the Buddha doesn't get fed up and say, okay, ciao fellas, I'm off to nirvana, good luck. No, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, because of their great compassion, are there, and they continue to try and help us. And someday, maybe this life even, we will get a little bit smarter, and we start to listen, and we start to practice. And we become more aware of what's going on in our body, speech, and mind. We become more aware of our potential, and we use our potential to generate really wonderful qualities, just like the Bodhisattvas. Okay? So that's that verse. I think that's a good place to end, huh? Yeah? So what I want you to come away with from this explanation is not, oh, I've created so much negative karma, I'm guilty. Yeah. All you do is waste tissue crying about your own stuff. Do something. Yeah? Do the Vajrasattva practice. Purify. Generate compassion. Yeah? Be responsible for your actions, and when you haven't acted properly, make amends. Yeah? Now sometimes people say, well, the person who I harmed so badly has died. How do I make amends? Yeah. When we go through the four opponent powers, remember the first one, what I said, generating bodhicitta? Yeah. It makes amends for whatever negative actions that or negative thoughts that we have had about other sentient beings. So, meditate on bodhicitta, meditate on compassion. Yeah? Forgive yourself. Because when you forgive yourself through doing Vajrasattva, you free up so much energy. And then with all that energy, you can do really positive things and make a wonderful contribution to society and to the well-being of others. So let's do that. Okay, got it? Got it? Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So when you go home tonight, yeah, maybe do the Vajrasattva practice on your own. Yeah. Or tomorrow morning when you wake up before you come here. We'll do it again tomorrow. I'll explain more tomorrow. But do it again. Yeah? And think about this teaching on compassion. Okay? And that way you create virtue. When you create virtue, your mind is so much happier and peaceful. Okay, so let's dedicate.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Vajrasattva, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from the sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Okay, so tomorrow, 10 o'clock, right? Okay.